The Tomorrow People, episode 2, In Too Deep. This episode I thought was pretty good because, it gave us, I thought the show is actually, it's advancing, fairly well. Episode 2, I think is going pretty strong so far. I mean, obviously, it's only episode 2, but, when the first and second episode are pretty good, it gives you hope for future episodes. But, in this episode, we got a lot, tons of teleporting like crazy. A lot of cool, action teleporting scenes. You know, I guess it was fighting, but not really. It was just more like a chase scene. They had, the little wrestling moment where it was mostly just training, but they were teleporting a little bit. And not too much of telekinesis, a lot of telepathy. I think we're going to get that more than anything. It'll definitely be teleporting and telepathy more than, telekinesis, unfortunately, because I've always liked telekinesis as a power. And in this, it's mostly just people pushing people away. That's all they seem to use it for. So hopefully, we'll get to see more telekinesis in future episodes, and not just, you know, I'm pushing away to defend myself. But even if it's like I'm just picking up items, and it's used in this episode in that way, when Steven's cleaning up his room, but we don't see it happening except for like, we see the pillow move a little, and that's really it. But hopefully we'll get more of that in future episodes. But tons of teleporting, still looks really cool. Cool sound effect go with it. But in this episode, we get Steven in his first couple of days working for his uncle with Ultra, and we learn, Ultra kills. They kill people. They kill what they consider outbreaks, which are people with powers who basically have antisocial tendencies and are kind of just going down their own path, which is, the criminal path, which wasn't surprising at all to me. I kind of thought that's just what they did. I mean, I kind of forgot he even had the other people with powers working for him, but, if they can't bring him in, like he can't really bring him into the Ultra fold, they pretty much just take him out. And, in this episode, Steven's kind of working under another guy like him, and the guy, they add a new layer to telepathy, which I thought was pretty cool. Advanced stages of things, and in this specific upgrade, it's seeing someone else's memories or being able to show your own memories to other people, which is pretty cool too. And in this episode, we get to see Steven. At the end of the episode, he shares his memory with Carr. He kind of sort of like sucks a memory out of his mom's head by accident, and it's when his dad left and he basically said to his mom, like, I don't love you anymore, which is super harsh. But obviously he said that because he wanted her to basically just break any love she had for him, for you know because he had to go and he knew he wouldn't be coming back, or at least he knew he'd be gone for a long time and he might not come back. But he kind of sapped that memory out, and he also used his last memory of the night his dad left to basically block the woman from probing too far into his head. So that was kind of cool too. And we saw him basically working with the guy who ends up dead because he failed as like a commanding officer. So I thought that was really interesting that even though he failed, it wasn't just no big deal, you messed up this one time because the outbreak escaped. It was like, nope, you failed, we're just gonna put you down. And obviously that happened because he was a tomorrow person pretty much, and I don't think that would have happened at all if he was human, because Jedekiah doesn't really hate humans, he hates tomorrow people. So that guy does end up dead, and Steven has sort of a turmoil at that point, figuring out, because in the beginning he initially thought, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna find my dad, work for my uncle, and basically trick my uncle into thinking I trust him, and I won't get wrapped up in all the craziness. But that didn't happen. He saved the kid, but he ended up getting his partner killed because the kid escaped, and he kind of went off on his own. Steven did, and so that kind of it went up the chain of command. So the person over him was blamed, and we learned that the facility that they're at, Ultra, that's not Ultra. That's just one specific place that belongs to Ultra, and Jedekiah isn't the man in charge. He has people above him who, of course, we don't learn who they are in this episode, but they are teased. So Zedekiah isn't the main threat. He's just, you know, the main focus, as a threat right now. But there are people above him, so maybe they'll come into the fold this season. Maybe next season if they get one, which I'm hoping they do. Because like I said, episode two, I'm enjoying this show. I always love superhero based shows. If they're done well, they're good. Because you can obviously have a superhero show, and just because you have cool powers doesn't mean you have a cool show. So hopefully this does keep going and it ramps up more and more. And so far, I'm really enjoying the episode. It has or enjoying the series because it has good dialogue. It's well written. Steven has his family life and stuff. And in this episode, he decides, I'm gonna be, a good family member. I'm gonna be a good human being, and also be a good tomorrow person. So that was cool too. And he's gonna be a better brother and a better son and a better friend. And it was just cool to see that at the end where he decided, this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna work. I'm gonna be the best in every aspect that I can be, and I'm gonna find my dad and basically screw over my uncle who's the bad guy right now. But it was a really good episode. I thought he obviously they dived a lot more into Steven's attraction to Car and how he cares a lot about her, and we learn more about John and Car and how they aren't apparently boyfriend and girlfriend, but they obviously have a physical connection and a mental and emotional connection too. And it's not just physical, but they are something important to each other, but they aren't really together at the moment. But John is kind of like the leader of like the underground at this point, and he has in this episode he pretty much has to decide to go against the rules that he normally upholds, which is once Ultra gets involved with an outbreak, it's too dangerous for us to get involved. But he goes against that after Steven talks to him and says like, you guys can't just hide down here, forever. There's no point in that. You aren't really living if you're just hiding away from Ultra. So, it kind of changes the dynamic of the underground, and so we're gonna see more of that in upcoming episodes. And we also learn why John hates Ultra so much. It's because he used to work for them, and that's why he has such a connection to Zedekiah, because obviously Zedekiah being the head person, he's the one you kind of blame overall. And we learned John used to work for them, and that's also where they got, I believe the computer's called Tim or Tom maybe, but that's where they got the computer from. He stole it somehow. I would assume he just like took it and teleported. That seems fairly simple, but that's where they got the computer, and that's why John has such a crazy so much hate towards Zedekiah, because he was involved in that. And like they said in the very beginning of the episode, or at least really early on, when Steven learned about people going into his mind, John was like, that's just the tip of the iceberg, and you have no idea all the stuff that they really do to people. So it'd be cool to see what other crazy stuff goes on. Obviously it'll be better if Steven isn't captured because of that, and no one else is either. But that does lead me into the preview where Carr does end up captured in next week's episode. So I'm sure that'll work out because it's only episode 3. I highly doubt they're just going to kill someone off, which would be really interesting. That would be unbelievable if that happened, but it's highly unlikely that she'll be killed. So I'm sure he'll save her somehow, but it'll be cool to see how it happens. And it'll be cool just to see how he being Steven, how he really plays both sides of the fence, being a double agent pretty much working for Ultra. And I think that'll be the big appeal to the show, not just him, not just the superpowers and stuff, but him literally working with the enemy who is also his uncle. His family is the enemy, and he has to work in that environment while still being a good guy. And not only does he have to not be tempted to turn evil, which I don't think will happen, but mostly he has to be careful because there are a ton of people just like him who have far more control over their powers, even though he is, technically stronger, or at least will be once he gets more control. And they've shown him training where he's like lifting the bar, and he can't really do it at first, but he got a lot better at the end of the episode. And like when he was punched by his officer, the commanding officer, when he tried to teleport through the wall, he couldn't do it the first time, and he just like hit the wall, and so he had to kind of shake it off and then just focus and teleport through. So we see he is still learning. Like he said in the beginning, sometimes his powers work perfectly, and then when he teleported into the janitor's closet with his foot in the bucket, sometimes they don't work too well. So it's good to see he is still training and he's not just like instantly great, because that wouldn't be too amazing. Even though it would let us see like all the cool powers early on, but he's still training and going through his powers, and he has to do that while learning to defend his mind against everyone else who's a lot better than him, like the woman who does all the debriefings and stuff. So that'll be cool to see how he kind of defends himself, without the watch that he has, which is also a cool little thing, just adding in little bits of technology here and there. So they have T chips to stop people from reading your mind. And eventually, I'm sure they'll come up with other stuff, because there's obviously a reason that people normally can't use their powers when they're inside the Ultra building. Like if they can't teleport in and out, there's something in that building that causes that to happen. So it's more than just that little T chip that stops telepathy. There's stuff that stops their powers completely, but they haven't really dived into what that is so far. But I'm sure we'll actually get the answers to that, and obviously they turn it on and off, or when everything's fairly safe and it's just their agents, they turn whatever the device is off or close off whatever it might be, so that they can use their powers and basically train the new people they have. But it'll be cool to see what it is they made or found, or whatever, that stops people from using their powers, and how they might eventually transport that into like portable technology, so that they can actually fight the Tomorrow people. Because for now, as we saw in this episode, they pretty much just send out people. They're like, all right, we found this guy, and then because Tomorrow people can't kill, they just send in like a human kill squad to just like blow people away, and that's pretty much it. So I'm sure that'll come into play sometime later in this series, where they have actual technology to like kind of turn people human, or at least suppress their abilities at that point in time, wherever they are, if they're in the vicinity. But for now, we just have to wait and see how that plays out, and we'll have to see how Steven sort of works his way around finding people and then having kill squads sent after them, and not pretty much just saying don't kill this guy and then his uncle finding out. But so far I think the show's doing pretty well. Episode 2, really good. I'm waiting for next week, because in the preview they showed a quick couple of little clips for an action scene, and I'd like to see that. Some actual hand-to-hand combat would be pretty cool. More telekinesis, like I said, would be nice to see. And something I'm really interested in seeing is if people can fly with telekinesis, which I don't, like they showed in episode 1 where John lifts Steven off the ground, and I would assume with telekinesis you can lift yourself off the ground. It makes perfect sense. But at the same time, when you can teleport, why would you like fly? Plus you'd be seen in the air, so all these different dynamics as to why you wouldn't really need to fly. But it would just be cool to see people use that a little bit, just to see if they really have that much control to actually fly, and not just like, oh, I'm floating in the air a little bit, but actually fly really fast or something like that. But excited for next week. Love the show so far. I think the actors are good, drama's good. The little backstory we get for his dad each episode, little clips here and there, I think are really nice, and I'm excited to see where the show goes, in all aspects. Him finding his dad, him staying as a double agent, and him getting more powers. The time stopping thing, who knows when that'll come back. I'm sure it'll be in like excessively stressful moments, so we won't get to see that too much, because it'll be like it's sort of his hidden weapon that he can't control. But like, who knows, there could be even more powers. It could like just go off into tons of stuff. But excited for the show. So comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode. Favorite moments, least favorite moments. Are you excited for the show? Did it lose you this episode? Did it gain you this episode if you're kind of iffy from episode 1? Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.